The story of the Eiffel Tower, an engineering masterpiece nobody wanted. In 1889, the most recognizable structure in the world was almost never built. And if the people of Paris had gotten their way, it would have been torn down before anyone had the chance to love it. This is the story of the Eiffel Tower, a structure born from controversy, forged in iron, and destined to outlast every argument ever made against it. The year is 1884. France is preparing to celebrate the 100th anniversary of the French Revolution, and the government wants to mark the occasion with something the world has never seen. They announce an international exposition, the Paris World's Fair of 1889, and at its center, they want a monument. Something massive, something that would announce to the world that France is a nation of progress, power, and ambition. Over 100 designs are submitted. Engineers, architects, and dreamers from across Europe send their proposals. Most are conventional grand arches, elaborate columns, ornate structures that feel like extensions of the classical buildings already lining the streets of Paris. Then comes the proposal from Gustave Eiffel. Gustave Eiffel is not an architect. He is an engineer, and a remarkably successful one. His firm has already built bridges across Europe and South America, each one pushing the boundaries of what iron and steel can do. He understands forces, loads, and wind in a way that most architects of his era simply do not. And his proposal for the World's Fair reflects that understanding completely. He proposes a tower, not a decorative tower, a purely structural one, 300 meters tall, built entirely from iron, with an open lattice framework that lets the wind pass through rather than fight against it. No stone cladding, no ornamental facade, no attempt to disguise what it is. Just iron mathematics and height. Nothing like it has ever been attempted anywhere in the world. The committee selects his design, and almost immediately Paris erupts. The reaction is fierce and immediate. A group of France's most prominent artists, writers, and intellectuals signs an open letter addressed directly to the government. They call the proposed tower a disgrace. They describe it as a gigantic black smokestack, a blot on the cityscape, an insult to the beauty of Paris. Guy de Maupassant, one of the most celebrated writers in France at the time, is among the signatories. He reportedly hates the tower so much that he occasionally eats lunch at the restaurant inside its base, because it is the one place in Paris from which he cannot see it. The opposition is not just aesthetic. Many engineers and architects question whether the structure is even safe. A tower of that height in iron, with that kind of open framework, nobody has done it before, and plenty of experts are convinced it will collapse, sway dangerously in the wind, or sink under its own weight into the soft soil along the Seine. Eiffel responds to every objection with data. His team of engineers, led by Maurice Koechlin and Émile Nouguier, the two men who actually originated the concept, has spent years calculating every element of the structure. The lattice design is not arbitrary. Each of the curved legs follows a mathematical curve specifically chosen to distribute wind load evenly across the entire structure. The angle of the base, the spacing of the iron members, the riveted connections, everything has been calculated to handle the forces that a structure of this height will face. Eiffel is so confident in his engineering that he makes public statement. He guarantees the tower will not move more than a few centimeters in the strongest winds Paris is likely to experience. He is right. When measurements are taken after construction, the tower sways less than 12 centimeters at its peak in extreme wind conditions. For a structure 300 meters tall, that is a remarkable result. Construction begins in January 1887. What follows is one of the most precisely organized construction projects of the 19th century. The tower is not built on site in the traditional sense. Every single iron component, all 18,000 of them, is designed, calculated, and prefabricated at Eiffel's factory outside Paris. Each piece arrives at the construction site already shaped, drilled, and numbered. Workers on the ground assemble them like an enormous three-dimensional puzzle. At the peak of construction, 300 workers are on site simultaneously. The work is dangerous. The tower rises in stages, and the higher it climbs, the more exposed the workers become. Yet despite the height and the pace, the entire project records only one fatal accident during construction, a figure that was extraordinarily low by the standards of industrial construction at the time. The four legs rise from the ground at precise angles, converging toward the first platform. Then the second. Then the final straight section that reaches toward the top. The whole structure takes just over 2 years to complete, an almost unimaginable pace for a project of this complexity in an era before computers, cranes, or power tools of any significance. The tower opens to the public on May 15, 1889. The reaction is immediate and overwhelming, not from critics, but from ordinary people. Visitors pour in from across France and from around the world. By the end of the exposition, nearly 2 million people have climbed it. Nothing in Paris, nothing in Europe, has ever drawn a crowd like this. The critics go quiet. Not all of them, and not immediately, but the numbers are impossible to argue with. The tower works. It stands. It does not sway, it does not sink, it does not collapse. And people love it in a way that no piece of public infrastructure had ever been loved before. But the story has one final twist. The tower was never meant to be permanent. The original agreement between Gustave Eiffel and the city of Paris stipulated that the structure would stand for 20 years, after which it would be dismantled and the iron sold for scrap. The same critics who had failed to stop its construction were now waiting for the clock to run out. What saved it was not sentiment. It was technology. By the early 1900s, radio transmission was emerging as a transformative communication technology, and the tower's height made it an ideal antenna. The French military recognized its value almost immediately, and in 1909, the city of Paris officially reversed the demolition order. The tower would stay, not because Paris had fallen in love with it, though it had, but because it had proven itself useful in a way nobody had anticipated when Eiffel first drew his plans. Today, the Eiffel Tower is the most visited paid monument in the world. It has been repainted 18 times, modified, upgraded, and adapted across more than a century of use. The iron lattice that Paris once called an eyesore now defines the city's identity more completely than any other structure ever built there. Gustave Eiffel lived to see all of it. He died in 1923, at the age of 91, long after the last critic had gone silent and long after the tower had become what it remains today, the most powerful proof in history that great engineering does not need permission to become beautiful.